shows the YouTube account?
Yo, yeah, this is on the USL Show YouTube account. Let's see here. Also, here is there's the YouTube page. So this link, oh wait, hold on, I can do better. I'm going to send you the link to the chat. In case anyone logs in and starts talking, you guys can chat with them while we're going. Although I think the first time someone offered that to me, well, it was like early on a show, I was like, no way am I doing both. So if you don't want to mess with both, I get that. Because it is, you want to be ready at every moment, and it doesn't come naturally at first. But it does eventually. Pop out chat. Okay, let's try this. Try this link right here. Nope, didn't work. Okay, here's the YouTube link. So click on that. It'll pop out a window for you. And then there will be in the top right of that screen, it'll say like top chat. And then to the right, there's like options for top chat, and you can pop out the chat into a new window, pop out chat. And then you can close the other window, and all you have is a little chat window. And you can kind of stick that to the side there. That's what we like to do.
Up there.
Yeah, I know. You say top right, and there's like so much to actually. I did the exact same thing. Okay, guys, here we go. All right, everyone, I want to welcome you to the very first League One Fun show. Are we going to call it a show, or are we going to call it a podcast? Or are we just going to say League One Fun? Should I just say welcome to the League One Fun from now on?
I think it rolls better.
Yeah, I do too. Welcome everyone to the League One Fun. It's the first ever. This is season 1. This is episode 1. You heard a couple voices there, and I think they're all nervous to say something because I haven't introduced them. So let's get to that. First of all, we've got Jason Weintraub. He is from Atlanta. Jason, you're going to be traveling all over the Southeast and maybe even the North this year looking at League One teams. How's it going, man?
Sorry about that. I was just looking at my shareholders notes. I'm a new owner of a team, so I had to make sure that I have everything in order for my traveling. Yes, I'm going to be doing quite a bit of traveling this year. I'll be going to Tormento's opening game. I'll be going to Greenville. I'll be going to Chattanooga. I'll be hitting up all the southern regions, so it should be fun. Really looking forward to that Tormenta and Greenville rivalry that they seem to be forcing with 20 games in one season with. So it'll be fun.
Yeah. So I guess as an owner of a soccer club, you probably have an assistant that made you a nice travel, itinerary that you could look at.
Yeah. I'm actually deciding helicopter or plane, but that's just regular talk. We can talk more about that offline. Yeah. We can stick to the soccer for now.
Yeah, we gotta talk to the peons now, the people that aren't like soccer owners.
Yes. Thank you, peasants. Thank you all for joining us.
Right on. Well done there, buddy. Next up, we have Jeffrey Fowler. He lives 50 miles outside of Pittsburgh, and he actually got his pick of the litter with the League One team because there's really no one right near you. Jeff, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Good. Glad to be on the show. Glad to also be a team owner. A little bit less than my co-host here, but I'll leave him do all the dirty work. You just tell me when I have to show up to things.
There you go. Perfect. Everyone needs those owners, whether they're just money and they don't say anything. That's perfect. Next up, we have Mark Murray. He lives in Phoenix. We talked a little bit about Tucson. We're going to talk more about it later. How's it going, Mark?
It's all good, guys. Thanks for starting this, and I'm excited. This is like just a new league and new teams and no history to talk about. It'll be exciting.
It is. I'm just really glad you guys were willing to do this. We need a League One podcast, and this is kind of like I put it out there, and you guys responded, and here we are. We're gonna give it a shot, and it's just going to morph into whatever the heck it is going to be in the future. I was happy it was easy to come up with a name, League One Fun. Everyone kind of was like, yeah, that was one of my options. Let's just roll with it. And yeah, we'll just see how this show goes. It's our trial session. This will be, if you're listening, it's probably on the USL show. And then we'll get it on its own feed in the next week. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. This one is the League One Fun show. And then tomorrow night we'll be doing a USL show live as usual. So 2 days after this one's posted, we'll have another USL show. But let's talk about League One. We have lots of teams to talk about. Let's just list them all off, shall we? We have Chattanooga Red Wolves, or is it it says Chattanooga Wolves FC, but it's Chattanooga Red Wolves, right?
Yeah, they've been themselves the Red Wolves.
Yeah, so FC Tucson, who is attached to a Phoenix Rising, which is an interesting storyline. Forward Madison seems to be winning the logo game, which was has been a lot of fun. Greenville Triumph, Lansing Ignite, North Texas SC, Orlando City B, Richmond Kickers, South Georgia Tormenta SC, Toronto 2. And is Penn FC in this league?
I think
next year.
Yeah, next
year. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, they haven't been putting out much news. I got to bring that up tomorrow night. Let's talk about the teams. I started, Jeff, when we first introduced each other tonight, when we logged on, you were talking about what team you would choose because you don't have one right near you, like I said earlier. So you listed a few things. What were you thinking?
Yeah, so my original one was Madison, because they have is it a flamingo? Whatever that pink bird is.
Yeah, the flamingo.
Neon stuff, that's what kind of caught my eye. I had nothing about the team, but there was that. And then as I was looking up some of the other stuff for the podcast, I was looking on Tormenta's Twitter, because at some point they decided that having a mascot is a good thing, and also leaving the public name it, because we know that can't get horrible at all. So I'm trying to figure out if it was a name, if they gave a list. I really hope they gave a list, because I haven't found anything with it. But on their Twitter, the first reaction to it was some guy giving the "Please don't torment with us" with this, and the reactions was just memes and gifs from Tormenta. So they might be my new team just because of that.
It's been really funny to watch how much a logo, or the media people on Twitter, the social media guys, how much that can affect what teams people are talking about. And because I'm hearing really high-end people talking about Forward Madison just because of the flamingos and not taking it too seriously. Is that affecting all you guys too, about what teams you guys are kind of hooked on right now?
Oh yeah, for sure. I actually had a chance to talk to PD Dub. You guys might know him as Peter Will. We're owners, so we have that nickname relationship going. But he was telling me.
What does he call you? What does he call you?
He just calls me Jason.
Oh, okay.
I don't have as many shares as him when it comes to team owning. But he was telling me that his goal for this was all about the community, right? So this logo, the branding of this team, everything is all almost with the community in mind. It's community engaged. They've had surveys, they've done marketing studies. This is not something to where it was just a couple guys in a room and said, hey, why don't we go with this, right? His whole theory and his whole idea behind this team is this is supposed to be a representation of Madison. It's not just going to be a soccer team that we're going to put whatever branding, and it has nothing to do with the city. And also, it stems from people voting for the logo, people voting for, what they want as the supporter section, because the front office says their hands off of that. The supporter section is going to be all about the people. So yeah, I think that's really something that catches on and resonates with soccer fans, because they want their city to be represented by their team. And you can see that, with the history of the city, represented with the team. I think that a lot of people have been happy and catching on to that. So especially now, they recently announced that their jersey sponsor is Hummel, I believe. And so Hummel does great jerseys for other teams, and everyone's excited to kind of see, what that jersey is now. And I don't think without the branding that they've done, people would be that excited, right? It wouldn't be something that people are waiting to post across all different soccer accounts, right? Not just League One stuff, but across every Reddit board and Twitter and everything.
Definitely. Peter Wilt, he's so friggin' smart. I'm just so glad he's part of the USL now because, I mean, look at this. It's like combining his business smarts. He's not having to deal with a lot of other crazy owners. It's, USL kind of has their stuff together. He's just free to kind of do his thing, right?
For sure. And a fun tidbit, it almost wasn't a Flamingo. They were going back and forth doing some fan voting, and they were thinking about doing the Ford lady statue that they have. And actually a Chicago Fire fan that Peter knows kind of said, "Now, you know what? You should reconsider the Flamingo. I think that represents the city better, and I like it." And so they went back and he talked to the board, and yeah, they ended up going with the Flamingo because of it.
It's really interesting. I didn't know about the Flamingo thing till this team came out, and I think that's new to most of the country. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm glad they did it because everyone seems to love it. I've not talked to anyone who doesn't. So, Mark, you want to talk to us about Tucson a little bit? Have you been geeking out on them a little bit, or am I making too many assumptions?
No, I mean, geeking out on what information's been posted, which isn't
not a lot.
Isn't a whole lot. We've got a coach announcement, another coach announcement, and then the announcement about the announcement tomorrow. But I mean, so far, FC Tucson was established already in PDL, and so I think for most people, there wasn't as much anticipation of player announcements, jersey reveals. That stuff will come like we expect, and so I really right now, at least for us in Phoenix and Phoenix Rising fans, we're just itching to know which of the Rising guys are going to go down. Hopefully, and be kind of those two-way players between squads.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see a lot of that kind of stuff, like which ones go down, how often do they go back and forth? Are there going to be any like standout Tucson players that go up and get to play with Phoenix Rising? That'll be really cool to see the first player that like gets to start that comes from Tucson. I'm excited for that.
Oh yeah, and it's great because it's only 2 hours, not even 2 hours, like an hour and a half away, and so you could have a guy play FC Tucson Saturday night after being on the bench Friday night for Rising, and so there'll be a lot of shared interest between the teams.
Definitely. Seeing a lot of teams that I used to have to cover. I can say that kind of because Toronto 2 is not that exciting to cover in the USL show. But Toronto 2 is dropping down to a league that they might actually do well in. I'd be interesting to see if that happens or if they stay bad. It's going to be almost a measure of what kind of coaching and what kind of players they send down, I suppose. But Orlando City B's making a return after a year of hiatus. Richmond Kickers are dropping down, and I think we're all glad to see. Part of this story is like these guys have a place to go rather than folding in the next 5 or 10 years if the money keeps going up and up and up. So, oh goodness, I'm still getting used to your names. I'm sorry, Jeff. What do you think about all that? All the teams that are dropping down.
As you said with Toronto, I really want to see if it was just that they were kind of outclassed, and this is where their level is at, or if, unfortunately, they're just a terrible overall team. Because it seemed like toward the end of last season, at least offensively, they were great. Like I remember, they either tied the Riverhounds, or made us score like super late into the game. I remember it being a nerve wracker, and we didn't expect that because I think our first meeting we just crushed them. So and we always think of Toronto as sort of that team that needs an easy win. So I hope they do really well. Richmond, I was sad to see Richmond go down. But,
I was too.
I understand why. I think I was more gutted with the whole Penn FC thing, just because of the way they handled it. It wasn't necessarily the fact they went down, but the way that they handled it. And hopefully with this year hiatus, they get everything together and at least, if for nothing else, give that fan base something to go after, especially after the way that things kind of ended last year.
Yeah, I know, and yeah, I completely agree. And those teams may be some of the better teams, especially initially, because they've had that experience of being up a level. This may be easier, it may not. And we're going to talk about player signings. Some of them are pretty interesting, pretty almost surprising. Some of the quality team players that are going down, but I don't know. Richmond could get a nice jump in the beginning and then could be overtaken by the end just through experience. What else should we talk about? Greenville, Harks, was a coach with Cincinnati FC for a little bit, and he did well with them. And so he knows what he's doing. He knows how to build a team already. He's had a try at that on the second tier. Now he's dropping to the third tier. What do you guys think about Greenville? We can talk some more about Lansing Ignite. There's not a lot to talk about there, but let's talk about those two. Let's start with Jason, actually.
Yeah, so quickly about Triumph, I do like they've only made, I think, about 4 signings right now, but I do like that 2 of their signings are in the defensive. They've got Tyler Pollock, who played left back in the NPSL. He played for Miami FC too, and I watched a little bit of them, and they were great. They only allowed 5 goals throughout the whole season, ended up being the NPSL champions. He's a great back, and I was shocked to not see him go to a higher, like a USL championship team. So I think Triumph did a really great job in scouting and getting him.
I'm going to interject there. Just
he did go to St. Louis. That's right.
Yeah, so that's my city. If you guys don't know, and he was good for us, but I didn't think he was our best left back. So I think he will do really well down there, as in League One. But he could easily be playing in championship too. So I agree with you there. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, and then they also got Evan Lee from the Richmond Kickers, and who I was surprised that the Kickers didn't re-sign. I thought that he's a good defensive back in the center, and I think he's 6'4", so he's definitely the muscle man, can win some aerial threats. And so, yeah, although it hasn't been too many signings, I think the Triumph starting with getting 2 solid defensive players is the best way to start for them right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing even on the top level, now the top level, FC Cincinnati is building from the back. They're not spending all the crazy money up top like Minnesota United did, and we'll see how that works out in MLS. But it seems to be a common way to build a team, and I think it's extremely smart to do that sort of thing. So I want to dig into this now, because this is like one of the biggest stories of League One coming into being was the announcement of Red Wolves in Chattanooga. And then, this is League One fun. We're talking about USL League One, but we have 2 owners of Chattanooga FC here. And there's going to be a battle. Let's talk about this, guys. Jeff, what do you think about this? Obviously, you bought a share yourself. Are you torn, or do you have a winner? What do you think?
I mean, even though they signed Doyle, I'm still going with Chattanooga FC.
Mm-hmm.
But that Doyle signing, though, that's really a big signing for them. We're looking into that. When he was playing with the Irelands and the US, the under 17s, under 20s. That's a big signing, and also as Jason's going to point out there's some spiciness going on between the 2 Chattanooga teams, like as there should be, as a local derby should have. There's definitely some spicy, some give or take, but I'm Chattanooga FC all the way.
Jason, you were mentioning that spice.
Oh yeah, it's getting a little spicy in Chattanooga, I think. So the first thing that the Red Wolves did for their signing was they actually signed a former Chattanooga FC keeper, Gregory Hartley, which I thought was the kind of heel to where they could have just kept it to themselves and said, hey, you guys are doing your thing. We're doing our thing. We know you guys have had some shots towards us, but we're going to keep it cordial. Now they kind of thrown subliminals too. And I like that, right? This is a fun league. This is something they're coming in there and they're saying, hey, we're going to set our ground. But it is interesting because Chattanooga FC does have that history. They do have plenty of fans coming. It's amazing. They just went and became, open for fans to become shareholders. And, that timing obviously was on purpose, right? You have the Red Wolves starting their first season. And so it's going to be really interesting because I know that the Red Wolves are thinking about building a stadium and trying to choose where. But if the attendance doesn't really pick up, it's going to be an interesting conversation going into next year about, well, do we want to spend all this money to build the stadium when obviously fans have, chosen their allegiance to the team that was there. So I'm really curious to see how this goes, as the season progresses, and see if attendance does pick up, to see if any of their signings brings fans there. I've been calling them Irish SC because now they're on their 4th Irish player signing. So I don't know if that's the market they're going for, but one player I am really curious to watch is Andrew Mullin. He played for Atlanta too, and I got to watch him a couple of times. He's a defender, and he's a great passer. He had a 91% passing rate, and then when you take away the back passes, he had an 86% passing rate. So a super great passer from the back, 61% for long passes, right? So he's very good at throwing those long balls to the wingers or strikers, and he has no problem stepping into the midfield. If you give him space, he has no problem stepping up. The one thing I am curious about him, though, is he leaves his feet very often. Had 7 yellow cards and a red card last year. Definitely has that high risk, high reward mentality. And, he's about half and half with it. He won 60% of his duels, 77% of his tackles, and had 100 clearances. So when it's working great. But then when it's not, he's picking up those fouls and those yellow cards. And so it'll be really curious to see him playing in a new system with a couple guys where you have on the younger side, but then you have, these veterans coming in from England and Ireland, and see how that playing style is going to be. I think Chattanooga is going to be definitely a fun team and an interesting team to watch.
What's that guy's name? That's a really good one to follow.
Andrew Mullin.
Andrew Mullin, Irish.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think he's Irish, but everyone on that team might be Irish. I don't know by now. But yeah, he's definitely somebody to watch for. It was fun watching him in Atlanta too, and then not fun at times as well. So we'll see how he progresses this season.
My boy AJ Cochran was there at Atlanta too as well, but
he's at Phoenix now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He went to Phoenix Rising. Very nice. So, yeah, I assume that was Mark chiming in about Phoenix there. So, Mark, I want to hear what you think about Chattanooga. I want to circle back maybe to the thought of, this could be the year that decides it. Do you think perhaps that's true? Could Red Wolves pack it in if Chattanooga just kills it this year and they get nobody over in the other side of the town?
I think so. I think you're looking at who they're signing. I think they're going for bust the first year. And they're hoping that they can have the performances to draw the attendance to just sustain themselves for year 2, year 3, year 4. I'll be interested to see. I don't know. Out here on the West Coast, we don't have too much knowledge about what's going on, but I'll be interested to see. Do you think anyone will go to both teams? Will anyone have season tickets to both teams, or is it straight down the middle, one or the other?
From the war I've seen on Twitter, it's you're choosing. Which I did see an article about someone going to both, and the comment section was just absolute warfare. So yeah, like I said, I have a feeling people just chose their alliance, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I have a feeling if the Red Wolves are doing well and they're a fun team to watch, that's obviously going to help, but it has to start from the beginning, right? If we get halfway through the season and they're not drawing any attendance, it might not end well for them this year, especially when they're in talks of having a brand new stadium built for them.
Yeah, and especially because Chattanooga FC averages, I saw like 14,000 last year.
Something crazy.
So for Red Wolves, how many you have to get? At least 7,000 probably, right? To even make a dent.
I think 2 or 3 would be just fine for League One.
2 or 3?
I think so. But to survive, but that's not going to look good.
Oh, yeah, to survive. That's not going to make a dent in the market.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's what they'll do too. Here's the other thing I want to bring up is that Nipun had a really smart tweet. Nipun Chopra, battle for Chattanooga, CFC advantage, goodwill, passionate SG and fans, supporter group and fans, community engagement, independent of whimsies of one owner, current stadium, current sponsors. Okay. Red Wolves have a slight advantage in money. Apparently, according to him, he would know probably in that department. And then Red Wolves advantage, USL PR, USL alignment, potential stadium is a big one for me. And to me, like the USL business smarts is pretty good, even though Chattanooga seems to have their stuff together in that department as well. Let's circle back to Jeff. What do you think about all of those things? Could any one of those things, which one of those things do you think is most important that could really break the other team?
Definitely the USL PR and probably the USL linemen are tied for the biggest thing. Just because if it goes bust for them, it doesn't matter at that point. I mean, USL can do things and hopefully try to save them, but if you're not getting people in the stands, if you're not getting people interested in them, it doesn't matter who's behind you or what your lineman is. And it works the opposite way too. If you're getting the fans, if you're getting the interest, that definitely helps your case, especially with the potential for the stadium.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it all comes down to whose battle lines are more entrenched.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
I think worst case scenario for Red Wolves is if Chattanooga FC hits their shareholder goal, which they probably will. They're already at $300,000 and it's been less than a week, and then goes and wins the PSL championship. I think that's a worst case for them. And I also think a big deciding factor is where's that stadium for Red Wolves going to be placed.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get a prime location and get that stadium right in downtown, then I think that they do have a good chance of having a couple fans maybe sneaking in and pretending like they're not there and checking out, the new stadium, the new team. But
yeah,
I think that right now it's for them, they kind of don't hold their own destiny, which is a dangerous thing to not be able to have in your first year, right? You just have to go out and do whatever you can. And like you said, I think they're going boom or bust, and you have to, right? I don't think you have the time to try to progress and build up from day one. I think you have to come out there flashy and flamboyant and hope it's enough to draw some spectators in.
It is interesting. It's almost like a capitalistic version of Pro Rel, except one dies. You know what I mean? It would be terrible. It's terrible. I hate it. If battle like to survive right now.
If you advertise that might make a lot more discussion about having Pro Rel in America. Like if your team gets relegated, you're dead. It's over.
It's worse. Worse than being relegated. You're gone. Man, it's really heartbreaking that's what's happening. I was really upset when it first happened, and I kind of tried to grill the League One VP about it, but then Charlotte popped up. I should ask you guys about that too, because now Nisa's kind of striking back, throwing a team in Charlotte to go up against the Independents. Mark, I don't know if you knew about that. Is that something where you were like, okay, well, I guess everyone's going to do it, and this is just soccer in America these days?
Well, I think so. And going back to Chattanooga real quick, it'll be a great, depending on the outcome of the teams, it'll be a great case study on what happens when you have, Chattanooga FC with that slow growth, slow build up, grassroots, and compare it to, Red Wolves just coming barging in, trying to be as flashy as possible just to attract those fans. But I think I'm surprised, being out here from Phoenix, I'm surprised that the market Charlotte is. We never consider Charlotte that type of market. And so, I mean, if the money's there, if someone has the money and they think they can pull away from the current teams, there's no real incentive not to. You're going to anger a lot of people, but you might as well try if you think you have a chance.
Yeah. I think we better cut it off there. Anything else we want to talk about with Charlotte, with team battles in different cities around the country? Cool. Moving on, fellas. That's good stuff. We had to cover it, right? First episode. It's the biggest news. Yeah. So let's move on, though. We're going to talk a little bit about the regular season, about the schedule, when it starts, and how it's set up. Mark. Who made the notes? Jeff?
Yes, I made the
notes.
Sorry,
man. You set up these notes, so why don't I know that means you're familiar about all of this stuff. So why don't you kind of start out talking about what this season's going to look like in that way?
So since there's not a ton of teams, there's 10 teams. They're each playing 28 games. The interesting part of it is that how friendly they're going to get with the other teams. they're going to play each team 3 times, with the exception of one of the teams are going to play 4 times. So if they're not enemies by the end of this, they're not doing rivalries right. If they're not understanding tactics by the end of this, they're not doing scouting or coaching right. But it also makes it fun for the fans, because I know with the USL, there are teams that you see, once or twice, and you're like, man, I wish I could see them more often. And it'd be a thing where like they'll get sick of it, 3 or 4 times all years. But wasn't there the case for some of the USL championship teams dropping down to League One? So if there was 10 teams that supposedly within the next few years will drop down, that's going to obviously give some new competition in the games. But familiarity breeds contempt, and I can't wait to see, especially the local matches, especially the matches where it's a team that was in the bigger leagues like Richmond, like PFC2, that are coming down, and seeing how they compete with this, seeing how they do with teams that they're seeing way more often than they normally do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not going to keep happening in the USL by all accounts, because we're going to have a lot more teams next year. It sounds like, but in the next several years, I think they just announced that 10 teams or something we're going to drop down from championship, and a lot more are going to be expanded on top of that. So cherish it while you can. This is a cool thing, something that I don't know anything about in championship anymore, because we get 1 game home, 1 game away, and that's it.
We don't switch conferences all the time too. I feel bad for you guys.
Yeah. That too. I mean, we are going to miss seeing Tulsa and Oklahoma guys all the time, but we're going to see them in preseason, so it'll be fine. But let's talk about postseason. Starts the weekend of October 11th with the final between October 17th and 21st. I thought it would be a shorter season than this. I know it's less games, but they kind of spread it out so that there's less double games, I assume. It starts and stops not much before and after championship. Mark, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I have Tucson's schedule pulled up, and I only see there's only 3 or 4 stretches of matches that occur between 3 and 4 days apart. And so it does look like they tried to stretch it out as far as possible.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect time, because that'll end right before USL Championship, and so you get some of the attention before championship playoffs. And MLS is still going regular season, and so that'll be a prime time to wrap the season up.
Top 4 teams go to the playoffs out of 10. How do you feel about that, Jason?
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I think
about right, huh?
Yeah, that's about right. You don't want to have, I think it feels like every year MLS and USL are allowing more teams into the playoffs. So I think 4 out of 10 is fine. Have, your semifinal and then have your final. And I think one thing that's going to be an advantage is where it's going to be played. So I think seeding is going to be pretty important. There's a big difference of playing October in Wisconsin than there is playing in, Florida or Tennessee. So it's going to show that every game's important, right? You want to make sure that you're hosting. You want to make sure that you have that home field advantage, especially when you're one of these teams that have these new stadiums being built. So I'm happy with 4. I think that's good.
Yeah. Can we talk about stadiums? Because I don't actually remember which ones are going to have soccer specific stadiums right off the bat and which ones won't. Jeff, are you familiar with some of them at least?
I don't know all of them. I know that I think Madison is sharing resources with Minnesota United, and I know that Minnesota United is getting their new stadium this year. So I don't know if at any point they're going to be hosting any of the Madison games in.
Surely not.
I think Madison's actually getting their own stadium this year. Yeah.
This year. Okay.
I think it's this year. If you go on their social media, you'll see the renderings and you'll see the Ghost soccer players that are that they put there for the time being.
They make any of them messy?
No, they did not. They did not. But I'm hoping that the supporters has at least one Ghostbusters tifo after I seen the Ghost renderings. But yeah, I definitely think Ford Madison's is coming this year.
Okay. And I feel like Tormenta's building one, Greenville's building one. I don't know when they'll be ready. That's something maybe we should talk about next week, actually. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
So we'll put a pin on that unless anyone, Mark, did you have anything else to add?
No, I know FC Tucson plays at it's a complex, but it's a soccer-specific field and stadium. They it's the same one they'll use for MLS preseason the next couple of weeks.
Oh, cool.
And so, yeah, it's built out already, and it'll be a good stadium for them.
Is that Desert Cup? No, what's it called?
It's the Sun Cup now.
Sun Cup.
It used to be the Desert Cup, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know it was on that field. That's really great.
Yeah.
Now we can kind of push that. People can get a good look at it before and come out and see games. Probably. Do they sell those games, right? You can go watch them.
They do, yeah. FC Tucson, I think we'll be playing a couple of them,
Awesome.
and then the rest of them are MLS with MLS games.
Plus Rising, right? Isn't Phoenix in there too?
Rising plays one, but they're playing most of theirs up in Phoenix.
Got it.
At
Okay.
their stadium.
Cool. Well, you mentioned it, Jeff, that Forward Madison did announce a partnership with Minnesota United. They were rumored with St. Louis last year, and it just never happened. And so Minnesota does have an affiliate. I wonder if they're going to send some of those, millions of wingers they have down to League One to get some time. What do you guys think? Let's start with Jeff.
You would think they would, especially because it's a 1 year, so it's not like they did long term. They're sort of testing the waters.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also interesting that I know some of the USL teams had partnerships with the bigger MLS teams, and to my knowledge, most of them were specifically just loan players. This one seems like they're having shared resources, whether it's scouting and technical resources, and then also the potential of playing exhibition game or games depending on the schedules and all that. But yeah, you would definitely think that the excess of players that Minnesota has that aren't going to see significant time, this would be a good time as any to get them some playing time and boost Madison's standing and the fans coming in.
Yeah, it'll probably work in that way too. I know in St. Louis we would get some loans every once in a while that were pretty cool. And I imagine there's going to be more of these affiliations in the future. I imagine League One might be a nice place to send really young players that aren't quite ready for even championship. What do you guys think about the loan opportunity for them and for other teams?
I think you might see more and more homegrown signings in MLS now.
Yeah.
And just because you have that extra outlet now that's a little lower. It'll be interesting to see who goes on loan to championship and who goes on loan to League One now. And if there's any difference between those types of players. So yeah, I'm interested to see which players come all the way down. And so I'm sure Minnesota will still have some type of affiliation with a championship squad. Some guys still need that higher level of competition.
Yeah. Personally, no, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think when it comes to Forward Madison, I think this is great for Minnesota. I know they had a player, I was trying to look him up. His name, I believe, is Bertrand Owundi, who was a left back for them and received 0 minutes for the whole year, not just for Minnesota in general. I don't think he was loaned anywhere. So when you have situations like that, and I believe now he is off the team and is somewhere else, but when you have situations like that, you have a bunch of players that need to play. So I think with Forward Madison and Minnesota coming together, that's a great way for them to get, those Minnesota players some experience, and also a gateway for Forward Madison's players to possibly be looked at by MLS scouts. Because just my opinion right now, Forward Madison probably has some of the most intriguing players to me out of everyone in this league right now. And that might be because I've gotten to watch some of them, players like Danny Tenorio. He's an Ecuadorian midfielder, winger. He played for Naples last year in NPSL and killed it. Had the most goals in the team, had multiple 2-goal games. He plays center but can drift wide, so that frees up space. He's a great player, and he just turned 26. So this could be the year for him to really be seen, right? Like he dominated on a team to where, 33% of the goals and 50% of all goal production was from him. So now he has a chance to up his level, be in better competition, and see if he's ready for that step up. So I think Ford has certain players to where, maybe not going to Minnesota, but at least gets placed to where other scouts can look and go, you know what, let's give them a trial. Let's see, if we can get them going. And you look at a lot of these players that these teams are signing, you have these 19-year-olds, these 20-year-olds, it's a great stepping stone. So I don't know, when I look at that Ford Madison roster, they've got some dangerous players. I mean, even up top, I've been calling them the Sunshine Conference of League One because it seems like all of their players have come from the Sunshine Conference in the PSO, but UPSO. But they've had a striker come from Jacksonville Armada. JC Banks had 8 goals, which was the most of the team last year. They've got players from Miami FC2 who once again won the championship. So, I think this is a great stepping stone for some of these players who can get noticed by USL Championship and even MLS teams.
Yeah, and the more League One teams we get, the more, I think we're going to see a lot of localized signing, where all the best Tier 4 players from all the different Tier 4 leagues are going to end up, all the best ones all in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan are going to be landing at Forward Madison or Lansing, you know what I mean? And so that's going to be nothing but good for U.S. soccer. We might be able to get these kids to climb the ladder or God forbid, I call it a pyramid, to get up to the top if they can. Someday we're going to have that story of the kid that played in every single league on his way up to MLS. So I think that'll happen. And I really hope to, this is what I was going to say earlier, that League One, I think it's going to keep, we've talked about how teams are going to keep moving and shifting up and down based on what they want to do and what the league wants. I think perhaps championship's going to be more professional, and we might see some more 2 sides drop down if the level is good enough. And that's what I'm rooting for really, really badly, for League One to be a good level of play, for, T2 players, Toronto 2 players to really thrive there and be able to move all the way up to MLS for to get a look and look fine. That's what I want. And I hope more of those 2 teams come down and we get those young players playing in League One. And then when they need a little bit more of a challenge, then you get like a real worldwide soccer loan to championship, not kind of a sending down minor league style, but like an actual loan to championship. And then they get their shot with MLS. That's kind of what I'm thinking and hoping for. Do you guys have any other comments about the new look of the pyramid and how you want it to work? Jason, let's start with you if you got it.
Yeah, I think when it was mentioned, like you said, 10 to 12 teams, I think they said are going to be brought down from championship into League One. And I think right now, because it's the first year, I think a lot of teams are looking at this league differently, right? Like you've got Orlando, Toronto, who are pretty much solidifying this is our academy players, right? We're getting our 16, 17-year-old minutes. We're getting them in a professional setting to where they can play different games. That's cool. One team we didn't talk about, North Texas, right? I'm excited to see them because FC Dallas has had a history of just producing all these great players from their academies, and they're losing them to Bayern Munich and they're losing them to all these other clubs. So now, you have a way to showcase this talent for them to be able to step up in the American pyramid and be able to play in MLS or whatever league they desire. But then you also have teams, like you said, we were talking about with Chattanooga, who, are putting players out right now that are going to be flashy and players that are proven. And so I think until we get those other USL championship teams, I think right now it's just every team is kind of looking at their team a little differently and how they want to build this roster, how they want to present themselves. And I think it's going to take a couple years to really kind of get their feet on the ground and get situated so we can actually see what kind of league this is. Like I said earlier, I would love for this to be a league where 19-year-olds can showcase their talent, can get more games, get in there, and then be able to get scouted by USL Championship or MLS or whoever is actually watching the league. So, but yeah, I think for the first year or so, it's going to be a little awkward, right? There might be some 8-2 thrashings. There might be some 0-0 boring academy games. We don't really know right now. So
we don't. Like Loudoun has no players. We didn't mention that in the championship. But Mark, what do you think too about the pyramid and how you would like it to look in this first year at least?
Well, I think a lot a lot will be either proven or disproven on the basis of this year. I think a lot of those two teams are looking at this upcoming year to decide whether they want to drop down, and whether that's going to be USL telling them they have to drop down or them volunteering to drop down. I'm thinking like Timbers 2, Sounders 2, especially Sounders 2. That's one of those two sides that's all academy. And so, if they look at this upcoming year and think that their guys can handle it, then I think you start seeing all those teams drop. And hopefully we get some more Western teams, because I don't want to go on all those road trips. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I hope it's a young league, but I also realize like you want to win. And so there are going to be teams that want to win real bad. And they don't have that two side or that academy to worry about as far as producing players.
Yeah. So Steven Hernandez is signed on tonight on the chat. So thanks for joining us tonight, man. He actually said he was asking when we think there will be a Western Conference. He thinks perhaps next year, even perhaps 2 years from then, based on how many Western or Central teams join to kind of make that work. Jeff, what do you think? When do you think we'll get a Western Conference?
I would hope within the next two, just because, depending on when they're sent, what teams get sent down and when they get sent down, you would have to think that some of them would definitely be the Western teams. And then whatever teams that are in the works for expansion, you would hope they would get, further west, because just having a whole East League, yeah, it's kind of fun for us, but you guys on the West Coast, it's not really that fun. You have a couple teams and that's it. But yeah, 2 years, I would think that would be a.
Yeah, this is a rough go, man. St. Louis gets mad about changing conference because we don't have anywhere to go in the West as easily, but it's nowhere near what you've got going. Nowhere near. Hopefully sooner. You think it could happen next year? What do you think, Mark?
I think so. I think if you get Portland, Seattle drop down, I think was the Boise team, is that a championship expansion side they were thinking of, or is that?
Yeah, it's a big old stadium they want to build, so I think it'll be championship.
I don't think a team like Monarchs will drop down. I think they want to stay as high up as they can be. And so you think maybe a Colorado team, the two Northwest teams, and maybe a couple in California, and you could have a Western Conference next year.
Yeah, and I imagine more two sides might join too. So maybe some more MLS teams might throw a League One side in there. In the West, do we want to talk about player signings? We've got a few. I think we should maybe burn through the ones that are in the notes at least, and maybe add a couple at the end. We'll start with Chattanooga's signings, and we may have covered some of these guys. I have the worst memory with names, so I apologize if I repeat. But Connor Doyle played for Darby County. Pardon me. Andrew Moulin, 24-year-old defensive midfielder. Jason, you're nearest this town. You want to talk about these guys?
Yeah, so Moulin was definitely the guy I was talking about earlier. Okay. Definitely.
The guy I want to follow. I wrote him down.
Yep.
Here we go.
Yep. He's he's defender in the midfield. He's someone to watch for. So the Connor Doyle one, I haven't seen him play much. I've heard about him, went back and looked at some highlights, and that seems to be the one a lot of people are excited about. I believe he's played for DC United. Saw him hit a rocket for them. He's been a little bit of everywhere. So I always think it's important, especially for a first-year team, to have those veterans that have that experience of playing in different leagues, especially when you bring in younger kids as well to play. They need that kind of experience and that leadership and that guidance. So with him, and there's a couple other Irish players on there like Stephen Beattie and Iman Zaid. I'm probably not saying that right, but Iman and Connor up top are going to be some strikers to watch. I think that's going to be fun and entertaining to see those experienced guys up top.
Yeah, that's cool. Jeff, you want to talk about the Richmond signings?
Yeah, so I am most likely going to mess up this name, but
Utaya Muape.
I don't even have to say it now. But I saw him, when we played Charlotte, when the Riverhounds played Charlotte last year. I think it's definitely a good signing for them. Young, energetic. I think this gives him more room to play. And then They signed Dennis Chin, who's kind of been everywhere. But if you remember back in 2012 when Orlando City, before they became MLS, he was letting it on fire. He won like the Golden Boot. I think he almost won all these other accolades with it. But 2011 he made his debut with them. Came on as mostly a sub. Basically, 2012 was his first real all-around year, and he just lit it on fire. I think for the 84 games overall that he played with Orlando, he scored 21 goals with them, and then kind of floated through. Did a year stint at Ottawa in 2015 or 16. Played in Israel in 2017. Was with the Hounds, but was nursing an injury for most of last year. When he came in, he has flashes of talent. I think that he's definitely going to be used as a sub, but it goes back to he's been around. He's had that quality, in previous years past. So definitely a good guy to be on the team.
Yeah, Chin, I actually do remember seeing him with the Hounds in his few appearances he got. I saw him in one of those games, whatever it was. Let's circle. Oh, go ahead.
He's also like the best dressed guy. Like, you're never going to find anyone that is better dressed than he is.
Nice. I like it. Jason, why don't you talk about Tormenta? They're the closest team to you, if that's I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Yeah, so they have done something that I like. They probably have the most signings of any League One team right now, and that's because they've re-signed 11 of their USL League Two players that they had.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think with that, I think that's something to look forward to early because, like you mentioned, that chemistry is going to be there. And they're doing a good job of keeping that core together while introducing other talented players. So I haven't kept up too much with their signings, but I believe they just signed a player yesterday, Morel.
Dude,
and
that is shocking.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry?
That is shocking to me. It's huge that they got Morel.
So, yeah. And so when you have a core of players that have that chemistry and you bring in someone with his pedigree, I think that is a very scary thing to start the year off with, right? I feel like they have that competitive advantage. And I feel like they're a team that also is in a city. If you've never been to Statesboro, they are sports crazy, right? As I went to Georgia State, so I don't like Georgia Southern, but I will give props when it's due. Georgia Southern fans show out for their team. They show up, they're loud, they are sports crazy. So when you have fans that are anticipating this, you have a core that knows each other, and you're bringing in veterans like that, I think Tormenta is going to be a dangerous team to start with in the season. And that's the kind of team that can come out the gates winning 4 or 5 in a row. And a lot of teams are going to have to adjust their play style for that.
Yeah, that's really cool. They could pull like if Christos FC moved up, that could be cool. All right, Mark, let's hear about Tucson. If you got your notes, go ahead and talk about them a little bit.
Well, I mean, all news so far is the coaching side. They brought in Darren Swatsky to be the head coach. He used to be at a part of Sounders Academy, and so he coached Jordan Morris, DeAndre Edlin while they were U16, U18s. And so proven track record with youth, which is hopefully the route Tucson goes, especially being that two side, the rising. They also brought back Jonathan Perlman, who at one point owned the team and then coached the team and then left to coach OKC Energy last year. And then he's now come back to be in a coaching role and a director role with the team. So I think that's huge, just keeping that core staff together will help with, especially since the players are being announced so late. So hopefully we'll get the first signing tomorrow. I know today there was a trialist team from Rising played SKC in a preseason match. So I imagine some of those guys might stick on with Tucson. So hopefully we get a lot of news in the next month.
Dude, that Swatsky hire is really smart. Seattle's one of the best academies in the country. I think they're like U19s are probably they're on pace, not on pace, but they're the best guess winners of this year if you were just to look at their players. So that's like the Rising being really smart with hires as usual, right? Doing things right.
Oh yeah, and he has a history with Tucson, the Tucson soccer scene at least. So when I first heard that, I was shocked. But you go into his background, and he's been here before. So yeah.
What is the Rising Academy like? Is it pretty established? Has it been around for a little while?
No, they just so the academy that they're attached to are the youth soccer. They don't technically have an academy, but they have a youth soccer team that was established as an independent team, and they kind of just put their name on it and took over control. And so there's been a couple kids have gotten called up to the U14, U15 national team camps, but not as established as some of the other teams.
Right on. Cool. Well, something to watch there with the youth. Open table here, guys. Anything we want to say before we go about player signings? Literally anything you want to talk about in League One right now?
I want you guys to watch this kid that Lansing signed. His name, he's a Haitian international player. He's only 19 years old. Steve St. Duck or Duke. I don't know how my Creole is, but he played where he was drafted by LAFC last year. Didn't get to play. I watched him play in the CONCACAF U20 championship. This kid is a beast with the ball. He is mature for his age as far as not being pressured by defenders. He plays wide, but can go he plays middle as well. He loves to take people one-on-one on the side and cut through into the middle. He's a beast. He loves to, he's flamboyant. He flicks the ball over people's heads. This is the kind of players that I'm really excited to see in this league. And this is the kind of players that I think have a benefit of being in this league to be seen. He played in a second division Norwegian team last year when he was loaned out from LAFC. So that's good to prepare him for the cold, because I'm sure before Norway, he's never felt temperature close to Lansing's. So this is just a kid that I'm really excited to watch, and the type of kids that I hope we see in this league as it goes on, for the upcoming years.
You still because that was the player I was going to watch. They're actually coming and playing in Pittsburgh. They just announced that they moved a date and Lansing's coming in. So when I was going through the players, if I've ever been excited to watch a preseason game, it's this, just to see him.
Yeah, definitely somebody who, if you did not know who he was and you turn the game on, he's going to stand out, because he is going to be the guy who is doing skill flicks, sometimes unnecessarily, in the midfield to start a counter, but he gets the ball and sometimes he makes magic happen. I'm extremely excited to see him play.
That's awesome. Anyone else have anything you want to talk about? Mark's shaking his head no. Jeff, you're good. Cool, guys. That's it. We did it. Let's go before we leave. Jason, we're gonna go down the line here. You guys can talk about where people can find you online, and you can sign off. Jason, let's start with you.
Yeah, you can just type in Home Sweet Soccer on Twitter or go to homesweetsoccer.com. Any hot takes I have, any misinformation that I have will be going onto those platforms. So
I did
look for me there.
Today. Just read a tweet and got retweeted by Tenario. So that was embarrassing. Jeff, where can people find you?
On Twitter, they go to at Plaid Pirate. They can find me there. And then also, keep looking on the USL News site. I write some articles for various teams there. So I'm sure we'll get some stuff for USL League One.
Heck yeah. Well. Mark, where can people find you?
Firebird Soccer. I believe it's at Firebird site. I write there. I do all the social media. We'll be covering the men's national teams in Phoenix this week, playing on Sunday. So we'll be there covering the match and all other Arizona soccer related news.
Very nice. And you guys were already in the BGN Slack. So I guess you guys all write for BGN Written. That's awesome. Everyone's nodding their head. So I want to definitely plug that and say, go look for their articles. Obviously, these guys are coming in knowledgeable. I wasn't sure how this would go, and you guys had plenty to talk about. You knew about, all these things. I could turn to you and ask a question. Everybody had an answer ready. So you guys did a great job. I'm excited how this show is going to go. I'm excited for people to hear it and to see what it's going to turn into. Thanks for joining me tonight, fellas.
Thank you.
We also
Thanks.
have to thank, before we go, I do have to say thank you to our, you guys are coming into a show with a sponsor already. How's that? Thanks to
Ooh.
our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. And please join us next week for some more League One fun. Thanks, everybody.